Welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about the three stages of the spiritual eye. And I like to expand on it. And so I want to present it as four stages of the spiritual eye. And I want to talk about how we can use the spiritual eye as a tool for the yogi. What is its purpose? How do we develop it? What is it for? Where is it going? These stages will explain where it's going, what it's exactly for, and why so many yogis are very, very preoccupied with the spiritual eye, understandably. But it's not something that you necessarily have to have because there are some experiences which will be harder for some people and easier for others. So let's get into it. Now, these three stages come from a friend of mine. He was very, very interested in khechari mudra. And so he actually went to India and he went from guru to guru to guru. He was looking for somebody that could teach him khechari. And it's a wonderful story. He found a lot of people that might have known something but weren't willing to tell him anything. And he found a lot of people who were willing to tell him things but didn't actually know what they were talking about. And finally, he happened upon one guru who understood khechari and was willing to talk to him about it and was willing to teach him. And he said the guru was so nonchalant that it really surprised him. He had a devil-may-care kind of attitude, a kind of nonchalance and a kind of naturalness, a kind of natural humility that my friend was not waiting for. He was, he was used to a lot of gurus would really needed a lot of praise, and this guru did not need it at all. And he told me that, and I'm like, oh, you found the real thing. That's a beautiful sign. You found the real thing. But it really shocked him because he was used to these gurus that needed a lot of attention and a lot of praise, and they needed a lot of proper etiquette. And here was this guru who was just so natural. It's really beautiful story. So this guru gave him three phases of the spiritual eye. And these fall right in line with my own lineage. When I spoke with Ashokji, he gave me Kriya and he said, let me know when you meet yourself. Now that was a little bit enigmatic, right? Meet myself. What exactly does that mean? Does it mean I'm going to go into samadhi and that's my true self? Or how I'm going to meet myself, right? Well, this progression of the spiritual eye actually explains that. The other thing, I have a video called 3 Books to Enlightenment. And in that video, I talk about Satyasharan Lahiri and his experiences in meditation. And that is just an amazing story because he started going really, really deep. And he started having these experiences where he could be washing the dish in front of him and he could see the dish, his hands washing the dish in front of him. But then if he looked in his spiritual eye at the same time, well, he could see himself washing the dish from a bigger perspective, you see. He was seeing himself from the spherical vision of the spiritual eye. You may have heard of the spherical vision of the spiritual eye. You may have heard this before. So that's going from one perspective to a larger perspective. And that really freaked him out. So he would watch himself do stuff, and then sometimes he would be blue, and sometimes he would see himself as pure light, and then sometimes he would watch himself dissolve into the light. So he kept having this experience over and over again. And he went to every single guru and learned fellow about the Vedas that he could get a hold of in his area and even traveled for it. He traveled to find somebody to answer all of his questions. It's quite hilarious because I could have told him they're probably not going to be able to tell you. And they didn't. They had no clue what to tell him about all of that. And so finally, he went back to his grandfather's diaries and he went through all of the diary of Lahiri Mashaya. And there in it, he said he found a reference from his grandfather, Lahiri Mashaya, where he was talking in his diary, I met my thumb-like self. Well, what does that mean? It means that you go into meditation and then you meet a mini me. You go into meditation and you meet a mini me, and it's the size of your thumb in front of you because you're looking through the spiritual eye and you see yourself and it's just a little you. It's a mini me. And so he found the reference in his grandfather's diary, and then he and his student, Ashok Chatterjee, went through all of the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, and everything that they could get a hold of. They started pulling it apart and looking for references to this. And sometimes you miss these things because you don't know what you're looking for. But now they knew what they were looking for. They were looking for a reference of the thumb-like self, something similar to that. And they found passage after passage that referenced this experience. And so now he verified it with his grandfather, and then they verified it with the scriptures, and they said, okay, this is something that has happened to other yogis before us, and this is an archetypal experience. So now you have it from Satyasharan Lahiri, you have it from Lahiri Mashaya, you have it from this guru and another lineage. This is an archetypal possible experience. Now, when I talk about the spiritual eye, I get a little worried that people are going to zero in, like a lot of yogis, and say, this is something that I have to have. And it's not. Okay? If you're going into meditation and you think that you have to have the spiritual eye, you're going to be like a predator. You're going to be using your left brain to try and grasp onto the spiritual eye. And one of the first things that you might notice if you see light in meditation is you will try and grasp it. And you're like, as soon as I look at it, or as soon as I hear sound in meditation, but as soon as I see light, I zero in on it and it evaporates. It goes away just like that as soon as I begin to zero in on it. Why is that? Well, the left and right brain dichotomy explains that. It says you've become a predator and you're coming in with force. You're coming in with the left brain. And so what you have to do instead is come in with the right brain. And you have to let go. And you have to surrender into the light. And you have to embrace the light. This is, oh my goodness, this is my beautiful light. Oh, I love it. This is so great. And you reach your arms out to embrace the light. You don't try and grasp it, because that's the left brain. You embrace it and you bring it in. And that's the right brain. So that's a real riddle for the yogi, because, oh, I've got to do. And then you reach a point where no, there's no more do. Now it's, let go and be, right? Do, be. Remember? So this is really important. So a lot of people will zero in on the spiritual eye, and I have to have the light, and I have to have the sound, okay? Now those are very good tools for the yogi. We're going to see why. But it doesn't mean that you have to have them. And so don't get locked up, okay? Don't lock up yourself. Don't lock up your mind. Don't lock up your heart about these things. Just let them flow to you if they flow to you. And if they don't, that's fine. Now, if you want the spiritual eye, you can work on developing it. And that was something that Lahiri Mashaya put into his program for his students. He had them practice Yoni Mudra each time that they sit to meditate. It should be a dark room, hopefully, because if you're in the light, you're actually causing your eyes to dilate when you practice Yoni Mudra or the Om technique of meditation, okay? I'm gonna show you in a minute. So when you're practicing that, you should be causing your eyes to dilate by expansion. So I talk about Hakula and expanding your vision, okay? If you haven't seen that, go back and watch the video. Hakula saved my life on my channel. And you'll understand about how Hakula and how to do it. You just pick one point and then you look, you expand your vision and become aware of everything on the left and the right. So you're using your peripheral vision, and that will dilate your eyes. Sometimes I say, dilate your eyes. People are like, I can't just, nobody can just, yes, you can. You look at one point and you open your peripheral vision, and that will dilate your eyes. All right? So the yogi should be doing this in meditation automatically. It's something that you want to learn if you want to see the spiritual eye, and if you want to adopt the correct attitude while you're meditating. So as the yogi is practicing Yoni Mudra, which I'm going to show you in a minute, his eyes should be dilating. So you don't want to dilate your eyes when you're out in the sun. You want to dilate your eyes when you're in a nice, very dark room, very quiet room, hopefully. That's our best place. Comfortable, dark, quiet. That's our best place to meditate, right? So how do we do Yoni Mudra? So first of all, you can do it this way. And I'm just going to put my finger tip on the bottom of my eyelid. And I'm going to push upwards very, very gently. Very gently. I'm also going to plug my ear at the same time using the tragus of the ear. Okay? So those two things at once. So there's that version. The other version, I'm going to plug the tragus. I'm going to use this finger for the eye, this one for the nose, this one for the upper lip, and this one for the lower lip. I'm going to do that on both sides. Some yogis will use an Om board. They'll make a board with a little prop coming down. Okay, you can buy one. They'll use an Om board. I don't suggest an Om board. I suggest you do this as long as you can feel comfortably do this, and then relax. And then just bathe in anything you perceive, and then do it again, and then relax. And then bathe in anything you perceive, and then do it again. So that's the repetition. So you're not meant to keep your arms up here and they get really tired and you get really sore. Of course not. And Lahiri Mahashaya would ask his students to do this at the end of his meditation program. Now that's really interesting. Why is it at the end? Well, the reason, I believe, is it's not meant to give you the experience while you're doing it. You're developing something so that the next time you come into meditation, you may see the light spontaneously while you're in meditation. So it's not necessarily that you're looking for the experience while you're doing this. It could be that you're going to receive it the next time you come into a deep state, and it will be there automatically, which is very, very nice. And now it's an active tool in your meditation. It is a non-physical item that you can begin to concentrate on. What is the spiritual eye? Well, I believe it's actually the corpus callosum between the two hemispheres of the brain. So all of meditation is a transference of your sense of self from the left brain across into the right brain. Now we have signals going back and forth through the brain all the time, but our sense of self is very identified with the body, with the mapping of the body. We're very locked into that. We're locked into the program and the words and the list that we're doing, the story of our lives. We're locked into that. And meditation is unlocking us from that and transferring our sense of self across the brain to the way that the right brain perceives the world, which is different. So we're going from a locked-in kind of perspective to a grand perspective. That's the transference into the right brain. And so along the way, the corpus callosum gets charged. And there's proof for the yogi. He experiences the first knot. So go back and watch the video, Lahiri Mahashaya and the 3 knots. It's a very, very important video to understand because you might have some of those experiences. You might be wondering what's happening, and that will help to explain it. The first knot's a very strong pull at the spiritual eye, or you might feel it on the top of your head, or you might feel it in the back. But you notice all of these are in the center between the two hemispheres of the brain. Spiritual eye, top of the head, back of the head. all three are in line between the two hemispheres of the brain. You see? So that's a little bit of proof for the yogi that it is the corpus callosum, the tissue, which is bringing the two hemispheres together. It gets lit up in the journey across the hemispheres of the brain. So what are the stages of the spiritual eye? So in the first stage, you might see the light and it might be far away. It might be very small and far away, just a little bit of light in front of you, maybe just a little orb in front of you. And then slowly it will come closer and closer until it comes right up on top of you. And it feels like it's right here. And it's huge in front of you. So that's the second phase. I had this wonderful experience. It felt like the light came down and kissed my forehead. So beautiful. So that's the second stage. It gets really big in front of you. And then finally, the light begins to wrap around you. Now this is profoundly deep. This means you are in a profoundly deep relaxation. It requires a lot. Remember, we were locked up in the left brain. It requires a lot of letting go of all of that for this phase to happen. And so the light will kind of wrap around you. The circular golden light will begin to wrap around your perception. Not necessarily your face, but your perception in the dark. This third stage is really, really deep. And it actually shows that you are on the edge of becoming absorbed in the right brain. So you're really transferring across the hemispheres and into the right brain. You're getting very close. You're kind of right on the edge of the cliff at that point. So it's a beautiful sign that you're very, very deep. And finally, the last part of the progression that was given to me from my friend, he told me, finally you will meet yourself in meditation, meaning the thumb-like self. And so I saw myself at the perfect age of about 25, and I was sitting in the lotus posture, cross-legged in meditation, absorbed in meditation, with just this beautiful, enigmatic smile. And that's meeting yourself. And this phase is really a part of the download phase. So you're coming into a very pure experience of archetypal pieces of yourself. And of course, you've been sitting in meditation all this time, so it's very natural to meet an archetypal representation of your higher self in meditation. So that's the last part of the progression, and it's a part of the download phase. I have a video on that if you want to go back and review the download phase. Very important. What's on the other side of the download phase is the non-dual experience. So actually becoming absorbed, actually getting sucked into the right brain. There are a number of ways that you might feel absorption. A lot of yogis talk about a rocket ship going up their spine and then they're lost in the universe, all right, or expanded in the universe. There's another sensation that I love, which is the feeling of getting swallowed by the higher self. Like Jonah and the whale, you're just swallowed up by the higher self. And you also might notice that you dissolve into the higher self. There are a lot of ways that we can let go of the left brain and have a strange experience of becoming expanded. But it's becoming lost in expansion, either in spaciousness or in nothingness or in the intelligence of the higher self, into that experience of just having a mind and floating in the infinite. Now you are in a non-dual experience. But the body has to be gone to have proof of that experience. The sensations of the body are completely gone. The sensations of the breath are completely gone. You're very, very deep in a freeze response. And so all there is just your awareness and this grand infinite spaciousness, this expansive experience. So that's proof that you are in a non-dual experience. You are in the first samadhi. That's what lies beyond that progression Okay? So the progression itself of the spiritual eye is it's far away, it's up close, it's right there in front of you, and then the rings of the gold or any light begin to wrap around you. You can also experience that as if it was sheet lightning coming over you, but it's these waves that are coming over you, and it's telling you that you're very, very, very deeply relaxed mentally, and your sense of self has begun to relax from the left brain. Otherwise, that experience will not be possible. And then lastly, you may encounter the download phase. You may meet a goddess. You may meet a representative of your higher self. You may meet Krishna. You may meet Buddha. You may meet a perfect representation of your meditative self. All of those are possible experiences in the download phase. And that's the progression of the spiritual eye. And so you can see why a yogi would want to encounter the spiritual eye and view the spiritual eye, because it's this wonderful roadmap through the phases of the spiritual progression into absorption, and then finally on the other side of all of that, the non-dual experience. So the yogi can use all of this as markers along the way to understand, where am I in this progression? Am I just floating around in the dark? Let me know where I am. Give me a road sign. How many miles to the next stop? So it's a wonderful tool for the yogi, but it is not absolutely necessary. What is necessary is the tranquil breath, the freeze response, and the roll up of consciousness into the brain. I talk about that on the Big Bliss training, right? Very important that we understand this rolling up of consciousness into the brain, the tranquil breath, and the freeze response. Those three things set us on the edge. And from that point, we can begin to induce expansiveness. Feel as if you are floating in space. Feel as if you are just a mind or just a cloud floating in the sky or floating in space. And now you're inducing expansiveness. You will be inducing the right brain. The right brain views everything in that expansive attitude. That's why it's so important. You're inducing the right brain. It will help suck you into the right brain. And that's what absorption is, that feeling of getting sucked into the right brain. And then being in the right brain, being in that non-dual state, that is the samadhi. So that's what's so useful about the spiritual eye. It's this wonderful progression into that. And that's why the yogi loves to use it. But it's not absolutely necessary. Just keep that in mind. And don't get stuck on it, right? Don't trap yourself in the left brain when you're a yogi. So I hope that you love this. I hope it was useful. If it is, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of you